and welcome to your Aries January 2020 reading. It's great to see you. Welcome back to my subscribers, and if you're here for the first time, welcome, and I hope to see a lot more of you. Hope you'll enjoy this, as many other people have. Well, this is appropriate for the Aries sun sign. It's also appropriate for Aries ascendant and for Aries moon, and in fact it's appropriate if you have a lot of planets in Aries in your natal horoscope chart. So let's settle back and see what we have in store. Now, this deck that I'm using today is not only the tarot, of course, but it has interspersed between it a lot of mystical markings, and it has the Nordic runes, as well as, in some places, the I Ching from the East. So we shall see what there is in store if those things happen to come up in addition to the tarot, which is, of course, as you know, greatly affected by the particular astrology that happens to be applicable to the card in the position that it's in. Let's get things underway, shall we? Because there is this Nordic influence, the runes were often inscribed on wood, and so I'm using this very earthy approach to this deck this month. Let's see what there is first. The Father of Cups in the North. The second card is the Five of Wands. Interesting backgrounds to this card, aren't there? Very interesting background. We shall see what there is, what's coming out. This looks like it's coming out, whatever that happens to be. The Son of Stones in the West. Fascinating. A couple of people are going to be of importance to you, it seems, during this month of January. And certainly these people have messages for you as they appear. And in this spread here, as it's starting to unfold, and I'm starting to get the Magician, starting to get the ideas coming through now, but I'm not going to preempt anything. Let's pick one finally, shall we? Here we go. What's coming from in the middle here somewhere? What should this be? You've got Aries' name on it. Well, the Emperor. Why not? Why don't we now have a really good, close look at these cards while I do the reading for you? All right, here we go now. Let me just get into the zone. Let's look at this card here first. This has a hexagram on it, the number 5. The number 5 numerologically very often refers to change. It refers to exaggeration. It can sometimes refer to chaos, but certainly change or revolution is one of the concepts that's embodied in it. Here we have 5 wands in this case. We can tell they're wands because of the suit of fire, the fire on top of them, arranged hierarchically. And this rock, which is coming up and pushing itself up from underneath here, sort of has a phallic implication to me. Now you might say, look, you can find a phallic implication in just about anything if you want. But I think that in this case, for the particular energy of this card, that phallic symbol or that phallic metaphor is actually appropriate, because the phallus does in fact go to seed new life. And I think that rather than seeing the title of this card here as being important, being conflict, I think what we see here is really something to do with change. Change is around this number 5, which is associated for me with the planet of Mars. Now, astrologically, we have Saturn in the first decan of, well, what would it be? I think it would be Leo. And Saturn and Leo, as a general rule, don't really sit well with one another, because Leo wants to be creative and express itself, while Saturn is cold and dense and wants to set boundaries and things like that. And Leo here, of course, is a fire sign in a fire suit, and added to the energy of this Mars from number 5, I think what we end up having is Saturn coming in and trying to dampen down all of this energy, the energy of 5 and the energy of the fire. Saturn coming in to quieten things down, to dampen down that creative energy, which is leaving room underneath it, I think, for you, for change, for those things of change to come about. Now here we have a hexagram. The hexagram here is, let me just have a look at it. It's yang, yin, yang, 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 yin. So that would be the hexagram, which is known as Ko. Now, Ko also is it's a divinatory pictogram from the East, which talks about really the situation where there is going to be what I would call, at first glance, it describes a situation that's come to a point for you, I think, where there is a revolution in thinking or action, which is becoming necessary. It's about fire underneath a lake, and the joyful lake has a fire burning beneath it, which brings the situation to a boiling point and transforms it in the same way that, water can be vaporized. Now, at the same time, Ko is the image of how animals and reptiles shed their skin in cycles. Now, there may be nothing familiar left about the situation after it goes through a revolution. The underlying cause of youthful folly, which is hinted at by this pictogram here, I think, showed a situation where repeated transformation is necessary. I think that sometimes a fear can be embodied that accompanies the change because the new path is unfamiliar to you. There's always some element of increased self-knowledge available when this hexagram comes about. Molting or the changing of the skin or hide can show that you have conformed to a situation that did not tap who you really are. As you open to the transformation, you can make your debut into authenticity, and whatever worked in the past will no longer do so, and you must open yourself to deep and powerful changes. Sometimes I wonder whether there is a sense of unhappiness about something with you, but unhappiness is usually viewed as a negative feeling, but it is the heart sending messages about the need for change. Therefore, even while the previous type of joy evaporates, like rain, it will return. There can be excited energy generated once you make the commitment to change. Now, in life, we don't always know what we want until we discover what we don't want. And Ko is a hexagram purely focused on truth, authenticity, and the discovery of real fulfillment. And I think this is what is going to be going through your mind and beginning the seeds of action for you during this time. Let's have a look at this rather interesting card here. The Father of Cups in the North. Let's have a look. Odin. Here he is. Now, I'll say a couple of things about Odin. Odin, of course, was the king of the Norse gods, and here we have him. Well, he's depicted here in a way as being upside down, and notice he has one eye which is gouged out. He gouged his own eye out because he decided one day that he wanted to seek wisdom. There was a Norse being called Mimir who was the wisest being in the cosmos, and it was thought that his wisdom was due to his partaking of the waters of a particular well And Odin approached this character at one time and said, "Give me the water to drink." And the person, Mime, said, "You must give me something valuable in return." And we don't know whether Odin deliberated a long time or whether it happened quickly, but in any event, he gouged out his eye and dropped it into the well, and the being said, "Well, that's a sufficient sacrifice." And he allowed him, he got a horn, like a hollowed out cow's horn, and put it in the water and allowed Odin to drink. Now, those of us who have values which are similar to Odin, it may be stated, I suppose, that there is no sacrifice which is too great for the attainment of wisdom. Odin is here depicted also in a tree which is known as the World Tree. The tree which housed the palace in its upper branches, the realm of the gods themselves, and also the 9 worlds. That is not only just the material world, but 8 other worlds. And at another time, we see down here depicted these runes. Well, Odin wanted to know what the runes meant. There were women who lived in the well of Urd, U-R-D, and they were the fates, and they spun the fates of mortals and the gods. And the runes were sacred images that could only be known to somebody who went through the process of sacrifice. And there is an ancient poem that says, "Odin, I sacrificed myself by hanging from a tree for 9 nights." Remember those 9 worlds? Hanging from a tree, and he wounded himself with a spear, and he gazed into this well until at last the runes began to materialize. And though symbols, they weren't simply symbols for human sounds, but they were an insight into the knowledge of the cosmic realm itself. And ultimately, of course, Odin then transformed the runes to other people. So there's very much of a watery element to this card here, I think, because of that well. And you might ask yourself, who might such a person be? If it is a person in your life, well, it could well be an Aquarius. It could well be a Pisces, I think. The Lord of waves and waters, the King of the hosts of the sea. This is, notwithstanding the depiction of Odin, who was terrifying, and Odin meant the master of ecstasy. This, in this card, is a man probably with commitment issues, amiable but passive, attracted to excitement, almost an unsustainable enthusiasm about things, sensitive but shallow. I think that he doesn't like to hang around and make commitments. He is somebody who tends to mismanage his affairs, and without luck his career can often present itself as an unbroken record of failure, and often his mental civil wars can lead to substance abuse, I think I would say. Yeah, very much so. I think that this person, of course, can be male or female. Now, at best, they're loving and generous, supportive, or tender, and capable of high spiritual achievement, I'm thinking, because that's what the image is that I'm getting up from Odin and his attainment of the secret and the knowledge of the runes. And I'll say one thing about them, and the lesbian and gay community can make the necessary adjustment, please, but this is a person who likes the opposite sex, and the opposite sex likes them, if you know what I mean, and they are about living life to the full when it comes to that. As a person who is ruled by emotion, not very practical, will try to flatter a partner really rather than pay their share of the expenses, is what I'm getting here. Often intensely insecure and needing reassurances. At worst, they can be unfaithful, fickle, shallow, highly emotional, and unreliable. Now let's talk about their bad points. I'm probably doing them a disservice, because what I will say about this person is that they can also bring great happiness. This card here is talking to me of inner contentment and great happiness, which radiates outwards from that person to enrich others around them. And I think that that is what you will be doing. I think you will be radiating out with charisma, magnetism, either emotionally, physically, or spiritually, to other people. Sometimes I think it's important, though, that you should not feel uncertain of yourself and feel that you can't get what you want in love and relationships. And there may well be periods of self-doubt where you need reassurance from other people, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing whatsoever. You give so much, you're entitled to get something back in return. It's possible, though, because of the type of person that this is in this card, that you may have a period where you lack inspiration, but this is going to be dissipated by these cards down here being the energy and the magician. So there may be moments of this happening, but it's not going to be there for very long. Anyway, let's see what else we have here. Who shall we go to next? Oh, I think, well, these are great cards down here. Let me see what we have here. Now, this is the Sun of Stones in the West. Well, this is a depiction of Chief Seattle. Seattle was the chief of one of the Native American tribes resident in the state of Washington in the northwest of continental United States. And he was a person who negotiated on behalf of his and another tribe, effectively a treaty with the, well, they probably historically would have been preferred to be called settlers, but one might also call them invaders, because their force of arms was quite superior to that of the indigenous people. And so it was a one-way street. But this was a person who engendered great respect amongst all who came across him, and particularly by those people who were from the settler community. Who is it? It may well be an Aries, I think. The prince of the chariot of earth, Aries. And if it's not Aries, could very well, I think, be a Taurus that you may have around you in your life at this time. Now, this is saying to me that you are going to be energetic, a capable manager, slow to anger, which is usually not the case with you at all, is it? But I think you will generally be slow to anger during this period of January, but look out if you have been pushed over the edge. God forbid you should ever get in the way of an Aries who has become enraged. Well, I'm thinking here that I'm getting a sense here. Now, for anyone who's unpartnered, I'm getting the feeling here that with respect to love, it's not likely that you might rush in, but rather you would tend and lean towards cultivation of romance and love over time. I think you'll generally set a good example to others, and that will be by, well, you might find this odd, but by actually having resort to quite traditional values, I think. Yeah, I really am getting that impression here. Have this thought in mind: I am finding the work that fulfills me and satisfies me. Look, this is a period in your life where you are taking responsibility for your life and you are becoming focused. Now, you're going to be quite good at athletic pursuits. I think your body will start to feel quite fit. I think you'll start to get some exercise to do that. You could be quite good at sport. I think you'll have an interest in designing and building things, but by here I don't mean like building a replica of the George Washington Bridge in New York, but of It can also extend to the design of things around the home. It can refer to gardens. It can refer to fashion and makeup, hair, beauty, things like that. It can refer to cars, an interest in automobiles that have got a particularly good design to them. And for men, you'll have an interest in apparel that produces a design that reflects your personality, I think. Be careful, though, that people don't perceive you as, in some ways I think you're going to be quite focused, and so don't let people think that you lack emotional warmth or that you are kind of dismissive of them at all, because I think that this is a time in your life when you're going to be very goal-oriented and want to sort out the material side of your life, be that health, be that career, be that your accommodation, and those things which are tangible to you is really what I'm getting. Let's have a look down here. Now I'll finish with this card because this has got Aries all over it. But let me have a look here at this card, the Emperor, the Magician rather. The last card we'll look at is the Emperor. Now, here's the Magician. Having a look at this Magician here. First of all, I'll make this comment. Let me pull out just a small amount so I can actually see it. Now, the Magician here, it may be difficult for you to make this out, but he has a sort of a tiara or crown on his head. He has in front of him the 4 elements of the suits of Tarot. Here is the sword. Here is the wand. It looks like a sword, but it's not. It's a wand because there's the fire coming from the end of it. Here, of course, is a cup, and this stone, of course, represents earth. So we have the 4 elements here. Very much an association with the moon as well. Now, I'll say here that here is a rune. Now, this rune here is the rune called Ansuz. And the rune represents the spoken word, communication, learning, the taking of advice, and the acquiring of wisdom. Remember, in the Fool's Journey, here is where you are imparted. This is the second card of the Tarot, the first one that's numbered, the Fool, of course, being 0, this being 1. This is where you have come into earth. This is where you have duality. You've come from out of spirit with God to duality. And so I think that what we have here is for you to say that you will... This really represents, I think for me, an intelligent individual who is full of energy. Now, be on the lookout for someone wiser than you who can give you good advice. Maybe somebody is older. It could well be, now depending on how the runes are cast, sometimes this can be a close relative, possibly your mother or another woman, generally. If it's shown with another type of rune, it can be with an older relative. But sometimes this rune suggests an apprenticeship or a new trade or course of work or learning under the guidance of someone who can teach you a great deal. This rune Ansuz may indicate some form of a test as well. So it could be like a job interview or an examination. But the good news is that when this appears, as it has done here, it shows that you now have the ability to get whatever arises with ease. Then we have this thing up here, right? This symbol looks strange, doesn't it? Well, actually, this is something which which refers to the number 2. In biblical Hebrew, it's the first letter of the story of creation, which starts the entire Torah or Old Testament. Now, this represents the beginning of duality with the one creator bringing forth the created world so that there can be both a giver, the divinity, and a receiver, the created world, for the creator to bestow upon. This creates, of course, a dramatic leap from absolute oneness to the ability for there to be two, doesn't it? It also creates the possibility for all duality and opposites. Yes and no, hot and cold, man and woman, up and down, and so on. Now, the literal meaning of this thing here is house, and it represents the universal concept of a container or a vessel. So thus the created world, the cosmos, is meant to house within it the spiritual. The physical world is meant to be a place for the divinity's glory to manifest. The body is meant to contain the soul, allowing it to act in this world. The dual world actually contains within it the ultimate oneness, but that ultimate oneness is concealed. This is the tool, the source of all building, containing and then bringing forth all other letters in that alphabet and allowing all other things to develop within creation. Now, this card is, I think, really the feeling I'm getting is the most important one which you have drawn in this deck for this month, because it's saying, this is the divinatory meaning of it. You have the skills and tools needed to move forward with something that you want to achieve. The key is to be able to bring these skills together in the best possible way so that you have the maximum chance of success in what you do. Now, you need to look at the content and purity of your thoughts, because all actions, all thoughts have consequences. What you put out eventually finds its way back to you, colored by everything it has touched along the way. It is a time to focus on your goal and what you practically need to do to get there. And wasn't this also what this was saying? A great degree of practicality and earthiness here. And you'll see I've tried to embody the earthiness in the wood that we have with us as well. You need to have the discipline and focus to transform your ideas into action, all right? Clear communication with others is needed at this time to make the best possible chance of success with your goals. Examine your skill set to make sure that you are not underestimating or overestimating them in relation to your desired goal. I think there is probably also a need for you to bring spirituality into your life, and let yourself be a channel for spirit to flow through into your lives and vitalize it. You have to separate out that which is truthful in your life from that which is deceiving you. This may be in the realm of work, relationships, or if you happen to be upon your spiritual path. However, this is a great time for you to share your knowledge with others who are looking for greater meaning in their life. Let's have a look finally at this card here, which is the Emperor. Well, let's have a look at some of the things here. It is, of course, Major Arcana number 4. I love the 4. It has an association with me with the planet of Jupiter, which is about expansion. It's about sheer good luck. This is a card which falls within the sign of Aquarius. And let's have a look at some of the features of it. Here is the Emperor standing under this world tree. Now, this tree we've seen elsewhere, haven't we? We saw this tree here where Odin was hanging upside down. In fact, that world tree is often known as Odin's chariot, because it was that from which he hung upside down for the 9 days and nights. Here it is again, this world tree, which holds within it the 9 worlds, the base of which, although we can't really see it here, is usually that well of Erd. Now, in the mythology, no one knows where the roots of the tree come from. The Emperor is standing quite well. There is a diamond which shows different colors. They are the colors of humanity. He has a staff here, like a scepter, which has been given to him by the Empress. And there is the globe, which goes to show worldly power. And there the trees go up. Now here's a sign, Fehu. Fehu refers to cattle, and Fehu means mobility. Now cattle, of course, on the move in the old days in Northwest Europe meant wealth. And so this is a time, I think, where things are going to be put in place for you which can develop and increase your material world. Here we have this mystical sign here. The mystical sign here represents divine revelation, the breath of the Creator. Now there's a psalm in the Old Testament, Psalm 33 verse 6, which says, "By the word of the Lord the heavens were made, and by the breath of his mouth all their host." The world was created with the utterance of this symbol here. It represents the gift of life and creates the verb of being. It is divinity, the spiritual life that comes about through the first four letters that precede it. This is the fifth letter of the ancient Hebrew alphabet. And it represents the life essence in all creation. It symbolizes the effortlessness of the world and is the symbol of divinity, gentility, and specificity, if I could say the word. It contains within it the freedom of choice. And that letter is also one of the letters of the holy name, Yahweh, which is Yod-He, Vav-He. So that's a He is what that means. But what can we say about this Emperor for you today? Well, first of all, the Emperor, as I say, is all about Aries. And it symbolizes leadership, responsibility, self-control, discipline, and focus. And you may be taking on responsibility for others, perhaps with family members who rely on you for their security. You will be a natural leader and organizer, working from a point of fairness with others. You probably, I think, prefer to be your own boss or a leader of others rather than a follower, is what I'm getting round here. And if you are currently having life problems, the Emperor encourages you to take responsibility, breaking problems down into smaller, manageable chunks and work systematically through them. He also symbolizes somebody who has lived through many life lessons and can now use that knowledge and life experience to help not only yourself, but also to help others. Success through self-discipline and application, thinking logically and rationally, learning to sacrifice yourself for a greater cause. Because only by sacrificing, as Odin did here, where he sacrificed his eye and then he hung upside down for 9 days and nights looking into the well of Erd in order to achieve wisdom and enlightenment in a way. It is only through sacrifice, very often, that we can achieve the things that are most dear to us. What a fantastic spread of cards for you. That's the way it is for you this month. Well, there you go, January 2020. I have to say this, that you were absolutely fantastic during that reading, and I loved doing it for you. I think this is going to be a great year for you, and have a fantastic January. And all I have to say is this, and remember always that you are a legend, and I look forward to seeing you again next month. Until then, bye for now.